Good evening and welcome to the Red Sea podcast. Tonight is the return of the tier lists and we have made it to strikers. We have 16 names, past and present, and a fantastic panel to discuss them. Let's run that intro.
Tell the world we are Liverpool, champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. Got Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are all supporters, and we come from Liverpool.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We have made it to strikers. It's been a long road, but we've got a fantastic panel to discuss. Pretty much the best position, I think, if we were going to do a tier list for Liverpool Football Club. The list of strikers is ridiculous. We've had to split it into 3 parts. Tonight is part 1. Joined by Thiago's father, James, and Statman from the Red Sea podcast. How are you two doing? You all right?
Good, mate.
Yeah, I'm feeling epic, mate. And like we said last night, we just keep on producing, don't we? Top tier 5-a-side team. So yesterday we made it into the quarterfinals of the 5-a-side Twitter Cup, and we're now in the semis, about to go through to the finals, and we have got the big guns out again.
We have. But yeah, welcome to Ste, an absolute regular on the tier list, mate. We couldn't do one without you. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Been looking forward to this one for a little while. We've obviously put it off a little bit till the international break, but you're quite right, mate. This is a lot of Liverpool Football Club's heritage. The front line. This is the business end of the tier lists, mate. With all due respect to the midfielders, this is a who's who, and I'm really looking forward to doing this.
100%, and a massive welcome and thank you to Ross from the Redmen TV, mate. Thanks for joining us again. You're slowly going to become a regular, hopefully, on the channel. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm doing my soccer AM hat trick ball this week.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say.
I'm a big fan of your new intro, by the way. I'm ready to pop a few pills and get it. A bit lively, that, isn't it? Yeah. I love the word.
No, it's a good one. It is good. It's into 2021, isn't it? It's very modern, very good. And we always have a little head nod to it, don't we, Statman, while we're off camera while it's running, definitely. So now, without further ado, just for anybody that's not seen the tier lists before, basically this is how we do it. So we've got basically we've added a few categories since we started, haven't we, Steve? So back in the day, I think we had about 4 or 5, and through popular demand, we've added a few. So we've got icon at the top, which is for the absolute cream de la creme. Legend, cult hero, underrated, had his moments, dodgy, and in the bin. So quite a big range, and we usually find a place for someone in every category as we go. And I think tonight will be absolutely no different. So I thought, what better place to kick off than with you, Ross, and with the player that you tweeted about. So tell me about the Senegalese, not Sadio Mane, but El Hadji Diouf. What did you make of his Liverpool career?
I think you're gonna have to make another category in the bin and just give him his own one. You know, someone is a complete disgrace, right? Before I came on, when on the Wikipedia they have a controversies list. So if you all bear with, do you want me to read it out to you?
Crack on.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, sound. So in France, his professional career didn't have some good times, resulted in some transgressions, resumed in a move to Rennes. Was convicted of driving without a license and involved in a car crash. In England, in his early career, Diouf was accused of spitting at fans and opposition players. In 2002, he was accused of spitting at West Ham fans while warming up. In 2003, he was accused of spitting at Celtic fans during a televised UEFA Cup quarter-final. UEFA gave him a too much ban. He was charged with assault. He pleaded not guilty and then changed it to guilty. In November 2004, while known in Bolton, Diouf was charged with police with spitting an 11-year-old fan during a 1-1 draw with Middlesbrough. Then on November 27, 2004, Diouf spat in the face of Bolton player Andrew Zhu. Bolton fined him 2 weeks' wages. He pleaded guilty. Bolton manager Sam Allardyce later revealed he considered sending Diouf to a sports psychologist. On September 20th, 2009, Diouf was questioned by police after allegations he had a racial slur at ball boy at Everton, telling him to fuck off and calling him a white boy. He admitted that. In April 2010, Diouf was arrested and charged in motor offences in Manchester. 8th of January 2011, Diouf was taunting Jamie Mackey with a broken leg. Called him a sewer rat. On July 14, 2011, Diouf was not reported to training for Blackburn Rovers because he went AWOL. On 15th of April 2012, Diouf and 5 other men were arrested following following a brawl in a nightclub in Manchester. Juve was bailed for a week. In 2013, Juve was shown controversial red card at Elm Road for making offensive gestures towards the Brighton fans. In 2011, Juve became embroiled in an argument with Scott Brown. And in March 2011, Juve was one of 3 Rangers players sent off for a brawl on the pitch. I didn't know after that, and it gets worse. It's just that it's all that arrogant stuff as well that he brought with him, and later interviews that he had an issue with Gerrard and Carragher. Like, if you don't get on with him, then that's fine. But like, not knowing them personally, but knowing them as players and what they mean, they won't get on with someone for professional reasons if they don't pull the weight. Now, he might have been one of the best players at the World Cup in, what was it, 2004 at the time that we were looking at him.
Yeah, 02, wasn't it?
But you back it up with performances. You back it up with the goods for Liverpool Football Club, and he always had that arrogance and never backed it up, and he just a negative, bad attitude. So I never ever liked that in any football player, let alone one of them that plays for Liverpool Football Club, because it just doesn't fit in, and he was never a good fit for Liverpool.
No, I agree. I don't think anybody needs to add any more to that, to be fair.
I've got a little anecdotal story for you guys. My boss went out drinking with Dev from Coronation Street on the streets of Manchester one night, and there was a chrome Mercedes SLR parked on the double yellow lines halfway on the pavements, halfway off. And there's a smackhead stood next to it. So my boss goes over and says, "Whose is that?" And he says, "It's El Hadj Juff's." And he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "He's paid me 50 quid. So if the police come, I've got to go and tell them so they don't tow it away." He said, "There's £100, fuck off." So he paid him a new one so he'd have his car compounded, mate. So I think this guy's not even a football fan who did that, mate. So I think that tells you a lot about the character of El Hadj Juff, mate. What an appalling man that is.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, what about that comment there?
Yeah,
well, that was agents. That was Anelka's brother, wasn't it, who priced him out of the move because of his wages. So, do you know what? Do you know what? That just makes it hurt even more to think that we could have had Nicholas Anelka and we ended up with El Hadj Juff. So I think we move on, guys, and cheer ourselves up a bit.
Yeah, Anelka's coming in part 3, so we'll have to wait for him. But yeah, Ste, I'll let you take one of the 3 that you added onto this list. You've got, I think is it Hodgson, Johnson, and is it Boersma? One of those, or a combination of those 3.
We'll go with David Johnson. So David Johnson is part of the glory years at Liverpool Football Club. Played in the sides with Kenny Dalglish, played in the sides with Graham Souness, Alan Hansen, and all that. Went to school with my best friend when I was growing up in school's dad. Was a workhorse centre forward. Obviously played for both the clubs in Liverpool at one stage or another in his career. Not a particularly skillful centre forward, a traditional number 9, if like pretty good in the air, kind of like almost in a Graham Sharp mould, if you're allowed to mention Everton players on there. I'm not sure that's wise, but kind of in that mould. So hard working, industrious, played for the people, good in the air, a good foil. He played a lot of games considering the people he was in and around. His trophy haul is pretty impressive as well. So he's one of the first type of target men we ever played with, because we never really have played with big number 9s that you fire the ball into and they hold it up, but he was more along the lines of that, but skillful and a good finisher, in his own right. Is he a legend? I'm not sure. It's hard to say, isn't it? Because he's got a European Cup winners medal and several league medals.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going to put in between legend and the tier below and let you guys decide between you where you think he should be. But in terms of a centre forward for Liverpool Football Club, he never ever let us down. Never ever at all. And he was a good foil and a good replacement when we had injuries. A great squad player.
Anything to add on those guys? I mean, I don't have many memories of that era. Anybody else got?
I don't have any memories of him, but I think when you're talking the bracket of those people in those areas, he's definitely a name that gets mentioned. Just look at some of his stats there, like 150 games and 55 goals. That's what's like what just over 1 in 3, still a pretty decent return. Particularly for the Liverpool were in the pomp there, and he wouldn't have been a regular starter there. Yeah, I haven't seen much in play. It's obviously difficult, but I think Ed Court here is probably the best shout there.
Yeah, we're in agreement. TF and SMS.
Yeah,
before my time.
we're going Cult Hero. Fair enough. No, that sounds good to me. Cool. So Statman, I think we'll come to you and we'll bring it forward a little bit now into the modern day. Is there anyone particularly you'd like to choose, or do you want me to just throw one at you?
Just throw one at me. I'm not.
All right, we'll go. What about Voronin? We'll take Voronin, the Ukrainian. I think he was Ukrainian.
This will be quick.
Yeah. Well, 27 appearances, 5 goals, says it all.
Is that all? Wow.
Yeah. Left, I think, to join Hertha Berlin as well. So wasn't fantastic in any way, shape, or form, was he? So there's not much really can say on Voronin, to be honest. I mean, we had the likes of Voronin and Gog at that time as well. So yeah, I remember him scoring away at Sunderland one season as well. I think that was probably his highlight. So it speaks volumes really when that's probably a highlight for Liverpool scoring against Sunderland.
Apart from the highlights in his hair.
Well, yeah, and he's ponytail, yeah.
I mean, didn't he play up front with Torres for a little while? Didn't we? Did he score away to Spurs with in that game as well with Torres, where we won at Spurs? I'm sure he did. But
five goals in 27 appearances for strikers.
Yeah. So was it only the one season that he was here?
No, he was here for 3 seasons, but he went out on loan to Hertha Berlin.
Oh, okay. I was thinking. I'm sure he played more than 27 games. It felt like he was here for longer than that. But like you say, we got him from Leverkusen, didn't we? And only really played for us for a couple of years, and only really the first season that he did actually feature properly. I think the second season
really
he was not the best. So, anyone got anything to add on that, or if we're going to start voting about where we're going to put him?
Only that he's a guy who thought he was better than he actually was. You know, he thought he was Torres, didn't he? So, but you know, it was what he lacked in skill. He didn't sort of lack in endeavour. He did work very hard, but that isn't enough to get you in the Liverpool side. So, I don't even know if he's a guy who say he's had his moments. What are those moments? I can't see them.
Probably dodgy. What we thinking, James? You thinking dodgy?
Yeah, quick. Yeah,
the one above in the bin, definitely.
That's it. I don't have any real fond memories of Voronin, to be honest. Apart from that, he just had this long hair, and
it's a sad state of affairs when your memory of a footballer is the fact that he looks like Triple H from. Exactly. That's a good thing about him.
Brilliant. Well, someone you might have more memories of, James. I'll let you go next. What about Milan Barros? You fancy taking him on?
Yeah, go on. Milan Barros. Now, for me, Milan Barros represents quite a fun time at Liverpool Football Club. I mean, where to start? We'll bring up a little bit of quick facts on him, shall we?
Go for
and see where we're at with Milan Barros. So Liverpool career, Milan Barros joined Liverpool in 2002 for a deal worth 3.2 million. Although he didn't move straight away because of issues with his work permit. Made his debut in UEFA Champions League tie against Barcelona on the 13th of March, and he partnered Heskey up front, which is quite crazy to think that he was at the club at the same time as Emil Heskey, because for me, Emil Heskey signifies quite a good period of time for Liverpool.
I think Michael Owen, don't you? Previous to that, really.
Yeah, you do. He scored twice in the Premier League away against Bolton Wanderers, as well in a 3-2 win. So that's probably the highlight, really, of his Liverpool career, to be fair.
Champions League final weren't bad. At least he featured in that.
And he featured, obviously, in the Champions League final as well. But you look at Milan Barros, and you always thought he was quite timid in terms of a striker. But, mate, he had a bit of bite in him, didn't he? He'd like to get after players, and he'd like to run players down, and he was always trying to get ahead of the play, which was good. I think his better years were when his hair was shaven, rather than when he had the longer hair.
Oh, the hair was classic, mate.
No, I think when he grew the hair, his powers waned, because when he had that shaven skinhead, mate, he was like a monster. He'd just get on to players, but. Again, it's not really a Liverpool career which you think it's not glittered. It's not top tier like we've had. So I don't think we can really spend too much time reminiscing and talking about Milan Barros, to be fair. I'd just like to put it out for a vote.
I had Milan Barros in the back of a shirt once. I'm really sorry.
Was it number 5? Strange number for a striker, wasn't it?
I quite liked him. He had... This is obviously before the Cup, but I think his work rate was something that appealed to me. He seemed like he used to chase people down, run people into the ground. The thing with him was he was a bit unnatural in the sense that when he had the ball, he used to run with his head down. That was always his downfall.
Into corners and channels and nowhere.
Yeah, or just into trouble. And like you never felt like his effort, like Steve said before, it's not enough. You have to be the actual, you have to have the quality. back that up as well. I remember being at a game. I think we played Bâle at home in a Champions League group stage, and he scored in that game. And I think the week after we played Spartak Moscow, I think he might have scored in that, and Salif Diao scored as well. Actually, he's a little nugget of people don't see often of him doing that. But I just think he was full of promise and potential, and just someone that never worked out, I don't think.
He's also a guy that. Go on, sorry, mate. Carry on.
Yeah, I think his relationship with Gerard Houllier was a difficult relationship. I don't think him and Gerard Houllier got on very, very well. To be fair, there was talk about potentially Barros putting a transfer request at the time that Gerard Houllier was at the club, and then shortly after, obviously Rafa Benitez arrived and he stuck around. But again, how can you not get on with Gerard Houllier, who is a god of Liverpool culture in terms of management? And will forever go down as probably one of the best Liverpool managers in terms of the modern era of what he'd done for Liverpool Football Club. So yeah, sorry, Steve, go on.
No, I was just going to say my memory of Milan Barros is doesn't matter if it's the 5th minute or the 95 minute, same pace and same energy. Don't think you could ever tire that guy out, mate. You could play for 5 hours and he'd still be making them long bursting runs into the corner with his head down. It's like the scene in Forrest Gump where they shut the stadium because he'd run straight out the other side, mate. That was Milan Barros to a T, that, mate. So yeah.
Well, he went on to go to Villa, didn't he? He moved to Villa. And then after that, it was Lyon after that, wasn't it? And then Portsmouth. He had that little swan song at Portsmouth, didn't he? In the Harry Redknapp kind of era, didn't he? With his friends Nico Kranjčar and all of that lot. I think Harry Redknapp signed Nico Kranjčar everywhere he went. To be fair, but Milan Barros ended up at Portsmouth and then Galatasaray after that. So he had a decent career. To be fair, in terms of longevity, but it never really amounted to anything.
I think just briefly for me, I mean, I always thought there was a good player in there. I remember him Euro 2004 in his blue Mercurial Vapors, top goal scorer at the tournament. And then for a mixture of Michael Owen and Heskey leaving and Cisse breaking his leg, he basically became our number one striker through default, didn't he? And we made the Champions League final. Cisse was just coming back from a broken leg, literally, I think in that game or that week, and came on for him and took the pen in the shootout instead of Barros. But I like the comment in there from Downton Abbey when he had to twist. He just avoided the strike on the comeback. But I always liked Milan Barros. He was one of my favourite players growing up. It was in that era where I was 12, 13, 14 and really starting to get into Liverpool. He was one of the posters on the wall. So I think in terms of where we put him,
your poor wall.
Yeah, with the blue tack on. But I don't know. I think it's a tricky one. What are we thinking, chaps?
Had his moments.
Had his moments. I think would be kind.
Yeah. But you agree, Statman and Ross as well?
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Yeah.
He's not quite dodgy, is he?
I feel a bit disappointed we've had his moments. I think he's better
at the end. Adam will review it at the end, mate, just for you, so you feel better.
Okay.
No.
I'm just a big fan of him.
There's no way you're trying to bump him into underrated. Leave him there.
Anyway, right, we'll move on for now. So, Ross, I think we're coming back to you now, mate. I'm going to give you Jari Litmanen, if that's okay.
Yeah. He was very much the kind of treble season. He was kind of knocking about Liverpool Football Club, and I think we got a player there who I don't think I appreciated at the time. I think I must have been 10, 11. Wasn't really aware of kind of who players were. And it's not until like later on, and even now, the people that kind of talk about and what he could have been, the fact that we should have kept hold of him a bit longer. He was very much is a cult hero, and whether sure he fits in that slot for this. But I think he just had so much potential, so much experience, and part of the reason why he was brought into this Liverpool side and led to a lot of success, probably similar to Gary McAllister in that sense. And he's obviously a midfielder, but to help nurture the likes of Michael Owen, Steven Gerrard, and Will Heskey, and bring out the most in those players as well. I wish I'd seen a lot more of him live than I had the opportunity to go and do so. But my memories of him aren't loads, but I know he had an influential impact on us and the players that were around him.
It's a weird one because he came in, like you say, in that treble winning season, but he only made 5 appearances in the Premier League. We had a lot of options there, and he came in from Barcelona, and Gerard Houllier was saying we've signed a world class player, but it was quite puzzling that we didn't really use him. I felt maybe he was sort of not quite what we were looking for at the time didn't really suit the style because we were clearly successful in the players that we had at the time. You know, you mentioned Heskey and Fowler and Owen, but you know, to try and get in there ahead of those as a new player, it was always going to be quite tricky, I felt. But I don't know. I don't think he was. I think he was underappreciated. I agree with you, Ross. I think there was more of a player in there than we allowed to see. What are your thoughts, guys?
You don't know what he was doing off the pitch as well. That's what I was kind of saying of influence. Like, you know, either on the training pitch or taking that experience in Barcelona, what it was like, because we never had anyone in that side until we won those trophies.
Exactly. The way I saw it was we were a side that played with really, really quick transition. Both Owen and Heskey were really fast. So we would just play longer balls into the channels for them to run into, particularly Heskey when he was doing that job. Littman was never going to unseat the guys in central midfield. So I think you're right there when you say he came into the club to instill his influence and his professionalism on the club. Played for Ajax in the Cruyff football, went to Barcelona. This was a technically very, very good footballer, very good. You know, arguably his country's greatest player. I think the problem with him is he never really had genuine pace. Now, when you're playing in a side that allows teams to play in front of them and then hits them with a quick transition, going to struggle to see where he fits in with that, really. So I think he was a victim more of his age and lack of pace. And at the time, Liverpool were playing a very quick transition. So I think the point about him being what he was for the likes of Michael Owen and Steven Gerrard, alongside Guy McAllister, who gets all the credit for nurturing Steven Gerrard, and rightly so. I think you've got to have those players around the club. So if you look at it, it's probably worth his weight in gold in that regard.
Yeah.
Statman, anything to add on him at all?
No, I mean, like you say, 26 appearances, 5 goals, but most of his appearances were in Champions League and sort of the Cup. So it's difficult when you've got the likes of Heskey, Fowler, Owen. It was always going to be difficult, like you say, to break into the team. But I think he only stayed for 1 season, went back to Ajax in 2002. So it was a shame because obviously he had so much potential, but didn't really get a chance to show it.
So where are we thinking on the list then, chaps?
Can I make a suggestion on this one? I think if he played a much with the team higher up the pitch, we'd have seen a lot more of him. So in terms of his Liverpool career, I actually think he's underrated because he had so much more to offer. But our system and the way, well, if you could call it a system, but the way we played at the time really didn't sort of help with him in the side.
Everybody happy with that, or are we thinking?
Yeah.
Something else.
I'll go with that. If you're going to base it on like appearances and goals, then he probably isn't underrated. But for all the reasons that we've mentioned, you know, a variable you can't really count. Like, he is underrated because you don't doubt his influence of what he did.
No, absolutely right. So we're on to the next one, Ste. Do you want to take one of the others I mentioned? We think we've got.
Yeah, we'll do Phil Bowes, but this will be quite quick because he only played 190 games in his entire football career, so we're not going to talk about longevity. Signed as a lad for the club, played, as I say, only 190 games in his career, played 82 games for Liverpool, scored 17 goals, scored 4 goals on the way to the 72-73 UEFA Cup final win, and has a First Division Premier title under his belt too. Moreover, when his football career came to an end, he came back to the club and was part of Graham Souness's backroom staff, and played a big part in sort of trying to rebuild the club to get it back to former glories. But as a player, he's one of the players that kind of set all this off under Shankly and then Paisley, obviously. So he's part of the fabric of what Liverpool Football Club were trying to do, and you probably shouldn't overlook that. He's got a European winners' medal and a Premier League winners' medal, so I don't think you can classify him as a legend. I think he'd be up there with had his moments is unfair for someone with that. So maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think? And I can't really decide where to put this guy because he only played 82 games for the club, but he's got winners' medals from Europe and the First Division, and you know he's done what he's done. He's not a cult hero, is he? So and he can't really be underrated. Having played 82 games, he couldn't get in the side because of Toshak and Keegan, and they were assisted by Steve Highway. So you know they're quite big people to unseat, aren't they? You've got to be a bit special to get in front of those two. So,
I don't know whether cult hero's wrong, you know, because if you just try and relate to kind of players of the modern day era that have had similar careers, if you can call it that, and I don't mean these players are instilled the fabric of local football because that's really hard to do. But I was thinking of like a Jimmy Traore or a Divock Origi or something. They're not the most influential players that have played for Liverpool Football Club, but they've won medals. So to me, I'd class them as cult heroes because they're not the biggest influences, but nor were they, well, maybe not Jimmy Traore, nor were they crap at the same time. But cult heroes kind of that. You know, you've done that. You've won stuff at this football club. That's what I consider a cult hero.
Well, we made Lucas Leiva a cult hero, which I will never ever get over. So, you know, it's open to debate. But
because he should have been legend, Adam. That's why.
Exactly.
Oh, good Lord!
Exactly.
Good Lord.
I love Lucas. Lucas was quality player.
Oh,
you're outnumbered, lad. Drop it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's for another day. So, where are we going to put him? Are we going in Hattie's moments? I guess, are we? Or
I think because it was so early in Liverpool's sort of initial dominance of English and European football, he played a big part in that.
yeah,
But he's not a big player in that story, is he? So I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah.
Let's say. I think he'd probably agree with you if you sat down and had a chat with him. He had his moments in that era, but would probably have liked to have done more because he did play 110 games elsewhere because he couldn't get into the side. So it's probably fair to say that.
fair enough. No, that's fine. Right, Statman, I'm going to let you choose your next one. So, who would you like to pick?
Not bothered. Firmino. Over the obvious one.
Take it away, mate. It's a good one to get on.
Yeah, signed from Hoffenheim in 2015, 29 million, 211 appearances, 66 goals, and obviously still playing. Big game player. Generally does turn up, especially likes of Man City and so on. So for me, fantastic signing. He does a lot for the team, which he obviously gets a lot of credit for. He's not your natural sort of striker who gets 20 or 30 goals a season, but he's happy to maybe get 10, 11, 12 maybe goals a season, but to create so many more chances for the likes of Mo and Sadio. So for me, he's obviously up there at the top. Not obviously at the top, sorry, but where we're on the list, just show us the list, please, mate.
Yeah, so we've got Icon. I mean, I saw a good one on Twitter earlier on. Oh, where we on? We lost the tier list. There we go. People were saying, is Firmino a legend? And it was an interesting little debate I was following. But is he a legend? Is he a cult hero? I think he's one of those two. Yeah. What's everybody else thinking with Bobby?
Maybe say I think he's a legend because he's been in 2 European Cup finals. He's been in a team that scored 97 points in one season, then got beaten once in a year. Without his impact on the side in all of those seasons, we don't get where we get to without him. He's been that pivotal to the team. So I'm going to throw a little challenge out there to you guys. Give me a reason why he shouldn't be a legend, and maybe do it that way.
I think it's tough. I think it's tough because you're talking about a player which ushered in the new era for Liverpool Football Club. He was part of that first that transition. Came in under Brendan Rodgers, and Rodgers was playing him out wide.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he didn't know where to fit him in, and Klopp comes in and is licking his lips because if we remember correctly, Klopp used to wax lyrical about Roberto Firmino from his Dortmund days and said, "I need this player in my team." So when Klopp got here, to have him in his side, it was a game changer. And like Statman Stubbs has said, he's almost like the sacrificial lamb of the team, isn't he? Where he sacrifices his own game for everybody else's game. And without him in that team, factually, we would not have reached the heights we have, or we would not be where we are. He is an important cog in that system. And we've seen how out of tune that system looked without him playing. Obviously, now we've got Jota, which is coming in and making the difference, but in a different way. But he was the guy who started the press. He was the guy who'd run 20 yards back and make the tackle before you even got to break into the midfield and then restart it again. Phenomenal player. Phenomenal. For different reasons, probably one of the best strikers we've had, but for different reasons. Not necessarily for his goal effort, for his goal scoring, but for his goal contribution. That's where I would say he falls into legendary for me.
I agree with that. I'd put legendary status above icon status, if I'm being perfectly honest, and I'd still put him in legendary status because I think that's where he deserves. I'd rather be a legend than an icon, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I think for everything that the lads have just said, plus just the fact that he brings joy to football. I don't think we've had a lot of footballers like that Liverpool Football Club, but not just that. He's not just doing tricks for the sake of it. Like, he does it and it's amazing. Like mugging off Soldado against Villarreal just for a laugh. He didn't need to do that, but he backs it up with work rate, endeavour, goals, selflessness. He's backed it up with trophies. I think there's a lot of recency bias with Bobby, that people aren't a massive fan of him, but he's played a hell of a lot of football in the past 3-4 years because he's not had a choice, particularly last year. Like, you're playing 3 times a week, mate, because there's nobody else. You at 75% is better than playing Divock Origi at 100% because there's nobody else. I'm sorry, but you're really going to have to go again. So I think that's underrated. And it's him running to the ground. He can't perform. And like you said, the goals aren't that important to what he does. It's what he brings to everybody else. And for strikers, they want to score goals.
Yeah.
So, it's not damage his ego, the fact that he's happy to set people up, and just like, he's a bit of a character as well, a bit of a, we call him a bit of a mad bastard and stuff like that. But as the overall package, I think
it's a celebration that does it for me.
It's a celebration, but he's having fun with it. He's brought joy. He's brought joy to football. He's smacked someone across the head. If they scored a goal, laugh his head off. The fact that he scored the goal in the Club World Cup for the first time we've ever won that again. He's had some iconic moments. PSG, when he had his eye poked out and he comes back and still scores a goal in there. He's not just big moments, but he's there when the chips are down. He'll drop deep and help out the midfielders, and then he'll go on the attacks and stuff like that. I mean, he's one of my favourite footballers of the past 4 or 5 years, I think. He's only been outshone by the likes of Van Dijk, Alisson, and obviously Mo and stuff, but I think at legend status 100%.
He's one of those players. Sorry, he's one of those players that if he doesn't play for you, you don't understand. You just don't get it. Yeah. You just don't get it. And it's the same as how I felt. And you wouldn't want to play against him. And it's the same as how I felt about James Milner. When we signed Milner, before we signed Milner, I was like, why are we signing sideways Milner? And that's why I used sideways Milner. And shout out to Daps at Never a Foul, because I've known Daps for a long time, and he said, listen, you guys are getting a player. And he said it to me. He goes, you don't understand what you've got in James Milner until you have him in your squad. And now I wouldn't swap him for anybody because of just what he brings to the team. It's the same with Firmino. You do not know what you've got until you have him in your side. And the day that Bobby walks through that door, he's going to be missed massively, massively. So that for me personifies legendary status.
Yeah, Steve, do you have anything to add on that one, bud?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you wanted one last endorsement of how good he is, go and ask all the number 6s in the Premier League what it's like to play when Bobby Firmino is playing, because he plays against City, he plays against Chelsea, he plays against all the sides that play with the 6. For one reason, he occupies them and they can't play football. So if it isn't a done deal, I'd like that to be the thing that makes it a done deal. That guy is a legend, 100%.
And all the compliments he gets from managers and stuff like that. I know there's been a couple of episodes of Monday Night Football and managers, and they've gone, Bobby Firmino, I got to take him in my side. And it's like likes of Mourinho and stuff like that. You wouldn't think he'd be his type of player, but he is, because they appreciate what he does on and off the ball.
Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? You look at the way that Liverpool have played, and it's weird to think he wasn't a Klopp signing. I think he came in under Rodgers, but he was almost the perfect person, and nobody else in world football played that false 9 like that, which made Mane and Salah so brutally good, and brought them into the game and helped them get the goals they did. Because like we've said, a lot of these strikers tonight are going to be based off stats, off of goals. And realistically, I think other than the 17-18 season, where I think he managed even getting 10 or 11 goals in Europe, he's been kind of, in and around, single figures here and there, touching into the 11s and 12s as well. And he had that really long period where he didn't score a goal at Anfield, didn't he? But he was scoring goals away from home. But I agree that he brings so much to this team. The PSG goal we've mentioned, the goal against Arsenal when he just runs through the whole team, the Stoke volley when he had his little top knot going on. He's so technically good. He scores all different types of goals and important goals. The header against Spurs as well at Anfield. So he's not prolific, but what he does, there's nobody that does it better. So yeah, I would agree with all of you guys. I think legend is definitely where he belongs, really.
Definitely. When you think false 9, you think Firmino. And that's whatever team you when you say false 9, it's Firmino. He has made that role what it is now. When you got teams trying to mimic it, like Arsenal with Lacazette trying to mimic it. You got just, do you know what I mean? But you can't because he does it to such great effect. We could whack Liverpool all night.
Absolutely. No, we could, but we've got to move on to someone else. James, I wondered if I could give you Stan Collymore.
Oh, yes.
We're looking forward to this one.
Stan Collymore, Stan the man.
Yeah, Stan the man.
An idol of mine.
Yeah, that's
Massive
why I wanted to give
idol
it to you.
yeah, this guy again, another one that as a young kid, a young black kid, made it cool to be a Liverpool fan. He made it cool to be a Liverpool fan, and I had the privilege of meeting the man himself, really recently, through work. I was on the forecourt at work, and I was just walking by, and one of the guys said, because he had a hood up, and he said, "That's Stan Collymore." I said, "Nah." I was like, "Nah, there's no way that is Stan Collymore." And the bloke, he runs our he basically is our car park attendant. And he said, "I'm telling you, that is Stan Collymore," because he's a big football fan as well. I can tell by his build, I can tell by the way he's walking. That is Stan Collymore. And I was like, "If that's Stan, yeah, I'll buy you lunch." And he said, "All right." So I've walked over, and I've just, you try and have a bit of a convo to try and work it out. So I've had a bit of a convo, and straight away I got the Bromley accent. I'm like, "You're Stan Collymore." And he's like, "How did you know?" I was like, "Mate," I was like, "You're a fucking legend." And normally I'm Mr. Professional at work, and it just slipped out. I was like, "You are a fucking legend." And I said, "You made it cool to be a Liverpool fan," and I'm forever grateful for that. Obviously, suffered with a couple of demons throughout his career as well, and he's very open about some of the demons that he suffered. But some of the goals that he scored, and he only ever scored bangers. I only ever remember absolute worldies from Stan Collymore, just worldies, just out of this world goals. And you think about some of the crazy moments that he had as well in terms of his career, and it still brings joy to your face. And I haven't got it in front of me, but I do have his autograph, which I've got somewhere on my desk full of Liverpool memorabilia, and it just again brings an absolute joy to my face talking about Stan Collymore, because he
your yellow top, James,
and the yellow and the yellow kit as well, and that's another reason why I like the yellow kit, because it just reminds me of Stan Collymore. Obviously you're married to Erika Johnson as well. That was crazy. Also,
does that move up the tier list? Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Or down.
She was the one back in the day, weren't she? She was a presenter. She was that, and that was kind of the first footballer and kind of superstar kind of relationship. But it was just very rock and roll, weren't it?
Yeah,
all the stuff that he went through, and it was very public with all the stuff that he went through. But I enjoy listening to him when he was on Talk Sport and stuff like that, because it just brings back memories. So for me, if I was to put him somewhere, where would I put Stan Collymore without trying to make it personal to myself? Because if it was me, it's legend, but I just don't think he's got legendary status, unfortunately.
No.
At the club. So, do you know what, guys? I'm going to be unbiased. I'm going to let you guys.
He was only there for two seasons, wasn't he?
That's it.
That was when I first started getting into football. So Robbie Fowler's my idol. Probably for similar reasons. He started getting into footy, have a strike, and it was him. But Collymore was there, and obviously there's those games against Newcastle. Collymore was a massive part of it in those. When you throw back, you're looking at his games and stuff like that. I think it's hard to put someone as a legend status. He's only played 60 something games, but his goal return was pretty decent. I would say this put him in cult hero, to be honest, because either cult hero or had his moments. Can't decide which one, because he's not there that long enough to be legend or icon for me.
Yeah,
but obviously he had big moments.
It's this guy, right? This guy exacerbates me completely, because if you look at what a professional footballer should have in terms of ability, he was big, he was strong, he was quick, he was good in the air, he could go off either foot, he scored bangers, he had everything. He was kind of like, he had all the same attributes, and hear me out in this one, as R9 Ronaldo in terms of left foot, right foot, quick, strong, skillful. What he didn't have was what was going on between his ears, because he had things to deal with, like Jay said before, he had some demons. I think he joined Liverpool Football Club when the Holiday Inn was taken over every Friday, and they got up to all kinds of stuff. There's no secret about that. That's been said by many, many players. And I think in his autobiography, he says he was sleeping with as many as 12 women at once. It just all got to him, and he turned into an absolute, football's the last thing that was on his mind. But if I had one sort of thought about Stan Collymore, it would always be what could have been, because he had everything. He had all the attributes that a professional footballer, particularly a striker, could want. Remember his goal, the first goal he scored for Liverpool, where he stopped dead, weighed up the situation, opened up his body, and curled one in the far corner from about 25 yards out.
Yeah.
Those were the things. He talks about the Newcastle goal when he scores and he goes off up the line. He says he felt like he was going to explode. You know, the guy had everything. Just, do you know what his club nickname was? Fog in the tunnel, because he was late for every single training session, and that was what they used to say to him, was there fog in the tunnel again, Stan? Is that why you're late? And it was just that he didn't have that elite mentality for a lot of different reasons for me. And he could have been anything he wanted to be as a footballer, but sadly for me, he'll always be remembered as a scorer of great goals. But oh, what could have been? That's how I see Stan.
Any stats to drop onto that at the end, Stubbsy?
What's that, mate?
You got any stats to drop on for him? I think, was it a British record fee that we brought him in for at the time?
I believe so, yeah. Obviously, 64 appearances, 28 goals, moved to Villa in 1997 for 7 million. So, yeah, I mean, like you say, he did have his moments, especially the 4-3 game against Newcastle, but it's a definite highlight as well. But for me, if I was to put him anywhere, I would probably say cult hero.
It's one of those things where and this is why I think the expectation weighed heavy on him, because he came in and partnered Ian Rush to start with.
Yeah.
Rush then left, and then he was almost seen as a replacement for Rush, and then partnered.
Just foul on it. But then we got Owen through, didn't we? That's kind of where he lost.
Do you see what I'm saying? So how do you come in after Ian Rush? Do you see what I'm saying?
Probably Fowler's in it though.
Listen, Fowler's an absolute sensation, because that man there, and I'm sure we can go on. We can talk. We can have an whole show on
for another night for Fowler.
We'll have a whole show for Fowler, because that man was unreal. But do you know what I mean? Very, very few professional players can step in and, do you know what I mean, take over after someone. It takes, the big boots to fill, and it takes someone with strong mentality to do it. And like Steve was saying, he had everything else going on off the field. You know, what he was shagging that night was of high paramount to him. Do you know what I mean? Let's be real.
A bit like myself.
Yeah.
Left hand or right hand.
Yeah. Makes me think of your tweet, Ross, when you said about things going down.
Yeah.
Right. So we got to find a place for him, guys. So are we going cult hero? Are we going underrated? Had his moments somewhere in there?
I think he's underrated, because for all the reasons we've just said, we could and should be talking about this guy being up there amongst the very, very best. But because of what was going on in his head, he never really fulfilled his potential, and he had shitloads of it, to be fair, didn't he?
Yeah, we have an agreement, guys. Yeah,
look at that.
Perfect. Right. So, Ross, I think we're back to you, mate. Is there anyone particularly you want to go for, or shall I just chuck one at you?
Give me Danny Ings.
Go for it, mate.
I'll take Danny Ings. I think I'm gonna slot him straight into underrated. I have a massive sympathy for Danny Ings and his career and what could have been. You know, we talked about likes of Count Milan Barros. This guy's got, bags and bags of heart, work rate. There's just those things that you expect as a bare minimum as a Liverpool fan. And go out there, wear your heart in your sleeve, and whatever is left will come. But I think he's got the quality as well. He's just so unfortunate that he's had some horrible injuries, a poor run of form, or people coming after him. Whereas we saw, a lot of people were like, "Oh, £20 million gone to Southampton, that's a good deal." And it's no shock the fact that when he starts getting one of the games under his belt, he's actually a decent footballer who can score goals. You know what I mean? I actually think the same will be for Divock Origi when he eventually leaves Liverpool. Now I think they all think he's a bit crap now, but once strikers get, rhythm, confidence, a team around them who knows how they move and what they want to do, he can score loads of goals. Danny Ings was that. It's just very unfortunate, never worked out for him. And I also think he was a bit of a victim in the sense of our system moved on and it wasn't for him. In the end, which isn't a bad thing. It isn't necessarily his fault. He's gone to Southampton, tore it up, but he's just moved to Aston Villa for the same reason. So you don't go to Aston Villa because you're a bit crap. I also like the fact that he'd gone to Southampton and without any disrespect to them, it's a step down from Liverpool. But he's like, no, I'll knuckle down, I'll do my job, then I'll play for another move. I love that. I love his attitude. More than anything, I think he should have been. He could have been better for Liverpool. But the club moved on, our football moved on, which meant that he had to.
I think with Danny Ings, he was a victim, like you said, of his injuries, because while he was out injured, we evolved. And when you're out injured with such a serious injury, it's very difficult to still remain part of the day-to-day runnings of the club, the day-to-day runnings of the team. And that was his downfall. He came back from the injury and then he was injured again. So he had a double injury in quick succession. And that for me was very difficult. Then Jurgen Klopp comes in and new manager, you hear all these great things about these players, but it's very hard for him to prove it because he's trying to mold his team and trying to put his stamp on the team, and you're just not around to be involved in that. So how do you impact it? How do you influence it? And it's very, very simple as that. But I think all Liverpool fans will look at it and look at what he was doing for Southampton last season, and think
there's calls to re-sign him, wasn't there?
If we still had him, could our season maybe have panned out differently? Is he that goal scorer that you need, that kind of fox in the box, that player that's capable of moments that you need in your team? And I just don't think we could have kept him happy. He wants to play football. Like you said, he backed his ability to go down to Southampton. Absolutely torn it up. He's gone to Villa. He's tearing it up because he has the ability, he backs his ability. So it is a real shame.
He's not an Origi, is he?
No, and I agree with Ross's comments before about you have to admire the way he set out with his career in adversity. He could have stayed at Liverpool Football Club and been our plan B. He could have been the guy that comes on off the pitch. He might have worked for him in the 4-2-3-1, which I don't particularly like anyway, but he could have been the one, because there are still question marks for me over whether Mo Salah can play through the centre in a formation like that, because he's so effective from where he comes from. What else do you lose? So you could have had him as a plan B, but basically maybe he didn't want that. Well, he didn't want that, did he? So kudos to him for going and reinventing himself at Southampton and getting an England call up and getting a move to Aston Villa. And do you know what? I only wish good things on the guy, because by all accounts, he seems like a really smashing fella. When he was on LFC TV, and to his injury and talking, he was never downbeat, and I admire that. So good luck to him. I hope good things happen to him for the rest of his career.
Agreed. I was going to come to Statman with the stats, but I think there's only 14 games and 3 goals, so there's not too much really to get into, is there?
It just says it all with how unlucky he was with the injuries. Like Thiago's father's just said there, he got one massive injury, came back and then got injured quite quickly again. So potentially he's always had the potential. I mean, look at his finishing. He is a fox in the box as well. So he knows where the goal is, and we could potentially do with a player like that. But like I say, respect for him. He could have just, like Steve said, he could have just sat on the bench and got his paycheck every week, but he didn't. He wanted to play football. So there's not many players out that would want to just go and take a step down. But I mean, he's definitely underrated. He was a really, really good player and he is still a really good player now.
So are we thinking underrated? Because I was thinking, really, he's not really had his moments because he only played 14 times. So is dodgy, or is that harsh?
That's very harsh. That's very harsh. Underrated, because you'd give your right arm for him last season. You would. Yeah. If someone said to you,
how can you put Ings above Barros, who won a Champions League? You can't.
You can. You definitely can, because in the season last year, would Milan Barros have come in and contributed? Look at the goal record; it speaks for itself. The goal record across how many clubs Ings played for.
Not at Liverpool. There's a Liverpool tier list.
Yeah, which I agree with. But you look at Danny Ings, and you look at what potentially could have been. You look at Milan Barros and look at the time you had at the club and the opportunity that you had at the club, and he didn't offer anything. Whereas the little opportunity Danny Ings had with the club, you'd give your right arm for him now. If you could have swapped Divock Origi last season, who didn't contribute at all, even in the games that he played, didn't offer anything, for Danny Ings, you'd do it now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we agreement, guys. That underrated. That was a very good answer from James.
And there speaks a salesman, boys. That's what you do.
I was trying to dig him in there to make him fight his cause, and he did very well, I must admit. Evening to Stephen, aka David, who does all our stuff, all our thumbnails, and all our artwork. So appreciate you jumping on, mate. He's a Newcastle fan, so good news coming out of the Twitter world, Twitterverse for them tonight. Could they potentially be Man City 2.0? We'll have to wait and see. But we'll have to wait and see. But underrated, that's absolutely fine. So, who was that? That was who did Ings first? Was that you, Ross? Cool. So over to you, Steve. So we're gonna have to go back.
I'll do Hodgson, right? And I'll do Hodgson for
yeah.
a quick. This is a quick one, right? This guy needs to go and had his moments, and I'll tell you why. This will not take me very long at all. This guy was at the football club for a sum total of 48 appearances. These are the medals he won: an FA Charity Shield, 2 First Division titles, and a European Cup in 42 games, because he crossed over 2 seasons. So if you're looking at a player that sort of answers all the questions about, is he a legend, is he this, is he that? This is a conversation as Liverpool fans we have all the time. You can accumulate medals without really doing anything, and that's probably doing him a little bit of a disservice. But 40 odd games and 5 winners' medals is a ridiculous stat. So for me, I wanted to put him in there for that reason, because that's just mental, and that polarizes Twitter's universe that says you need longevity to be a superstar, you need longevity to be a GOAT, you need longevity to do that. Well, an ex-Liverpool player got a haul of medals that is enviable for most footballers in 40 odd games. So he is an old school boy, but it's just a bit of a story there with his haul of medals in such a short period of time. So he would have to had his moments, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
So very well put. But yeah, I think that's fair enough. To be fair, Statman, you're up next, mate. So you've got probably for our era, Aspas, Barini, Ungog, Pongal. What a lineup!
Wow. God, I'll go with Aspas. Just
take it away.
Because where can you start with him other than that corner that unfortunately gifted I think it was Willian, the second goal at Anfield won it. So I mean, absolutely useless. I think 14 appearances, 1 goal, and it was against Oldham in the FA Cup, I believe. So for me, in the bin.
Short and sweet.
Straight
Anyone to add any more to that?
You kind of want to, don't you? But you can't.
Oh, it pains you. Do you know why it pains you? Because when he left Liverpool, and before Liverpool, he was doing all right, and then when he left Liverpool, he did all right.
Is this not an argument for the potential? Because you said Ings did it elsewhere.
Yeah,
Aspas did it elsewhere.
This is what I'm saying. This is what pains you. Why could he not replicate that form in a Liverpool shirt? Just what was it?
Premier League, I guess.
Yeah.
And when you're watching him do it in another club, and you're thinking, you fucking bastard. You think, why the fuck can you not do it in a Liverpool shirt?
Did we give him long enough? Did we bomb him out a bit too soon? That's the big question, isn't it? Did we?
He just never looked the right shape for a Premier League footballer for me. His head was bigger than his shoulders. It just felt like he wasn't the right sort of strength and size and shape. Like in the Premier League, to be successful, you have to be bloody skillful, bloody quick, or bloody strong. And he wasn't any of those 3 for me.
No. But he was creative. He's very creative.
For Chelsea, he was pretty creative.
For an assist, yeah, definitely.
No, he was very creative, to the point that if he had a better build on him, could we potentially be saying he could play the Firmino role? Because he had that about him. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's got the endurance and the ability to track back and make tackles and so on and so forth. But he could have played a false number 9 role. Do you know what I mean?
He couldn't take a corner. Can we stress this?
Yeah,
if I go from take a corner to the Bobby role,
it's quite a big gap.
I'm just saying, he had a little something about him. It just hurts me that he's gone on and performed elsewhere. I think it's fucking annoying.
I think that the major difference between Aspas and what we were talking about, Collymore and Danny Ings before, is the fact that like, particularly for Danny Ings, he didn't play because he was injured, and therefore he had potential and he had the endeavour and he had the work we were talking about before. Aspas played 14 games, but he only played 14 games in 2 years because he was crap.
Yeah.
It's like he didn't have the opportunity. He wasn't putting it in training. And when he did play, he was there because he had to compete with Sterling, Suarez, maybe Coutinho, to see some high quality players in front of him.
Yeah.
But he still didn't perform when he was given his opportunities. I think there's a major difference between
I agree.
taking an opportunity and not doing it. And for me, he didn't. So I'd lash him in the bin as well.
He was one of two lightweight Spaniards, Luis Alberto being the other one who came to the club, and everyone's thinking, what can these guys do? And the sum total of zilch, like, you know what I mean?
And look how good they both ended up being.
Another one that's absolutely tearing it up. Like, what the fuck did Brendan Rodgers do? Like, what was you doing, lad? Like, another one that's absolutely ripping it to shreds. Have you seen the assists on the kid? It's fucking frustrating.
Yeah, but he still can't run, mate. Serie A is such a different beast to the Premier League. You're eaten alive by your number sixes in the Premier League, Alberto, mate. So no point in crying over that one, Jay.
He'd get gobbled up, wouldn't he? Would he? That's maybe some solace I take from the situation.
Right. So we're down to 5. So James, again from our era, really, you've got Barini, Ungog, or Pongal.
Give me Barini.
Go on, take him.
Right. Started off at Chelsea, didn't cut it there. Went to Swansea, and arguably when he went to Swansea, he actually did quite well. But it was only on a loan deal. Then signed for Parma on a permanent basis and went to Roma, in which he actually did quite well in a Roma shirt. Brendan Rodgers obviously had this obsession with young players that he'd coached before, and he'd obviously had Fabio Barini when he was at Chelsea as a youth coach, and then over at Swansea. So he would be best placed to say what ability Fabio Barini had. Obviously, brought him over to Liverpool, and we saw none of it. Let's be honest. Bombed out pretty quick. It was his first signing as a Liverpool manager, Fabio Barini, and he was straight on the tour to North America. And it just,
remember that documentary I watched? You can see him signing on the day.
It just didn't sit. But again, he scored a couple of bangers for Liverpool. He scored a few little rockets in there for Liverpool, and you thought, is it starting to click for him? But one thing you could never knock with Barini is his work rate. That kid used to run and run and run, and it almost sometimes like a headless chicken. You never know where he was running to, but he'd just be running. In terms of what Brendan Rodgers wanted from pressing from the front and pressing forward. Went to Sunderland on loan again. Didn't really do well. Signed for them on a permanent deal to Sunderland as well. But then again, back at Sunderland on a permanent move, and then ended up at AC Milan, which again is a huge club. But again, just hasn't really clicked for him, has it?
I mean, he's never scored double figures for any team he's ever played for as a striker. That's how has he become a professional footballer for that length of time with that kind of record? I genuinely don't know. So
I think his name was on one of those envelopes from that documentary. Or in all three of them potentially. Again, bring it back to the difference of, like, you know, Stan Collins or Danny Ings. You can see the quality in players when they've got it, and it's a shame when it doesn't work out for them. Barini's one of them where I think Liverpool were just in a transition period of what we were trying to do. Obviously, you mentioned Brendan Rodgers, new manager, new ideas, but obviously Brendan Rodgers hadn't managed anyone of Liverpool's caliber before, so the expectancy and the quality levels day in, day out, on and off the pitch, are at a different level. Barini never made that cut ever.
Yeah, I think Barini was in all of those envelopes, wasn't he? He was in every single one of them.
But again, there was just this obsession, this inherent obsession from Rodgers to keep putting him in. No, it will work. It will work. It will work. And that's like.
He had fantastic character. That's why.
Well, he's a beautiful human being.
Rodgers is a coach that is particularly suited to young players, and that's what you do with young players. You keep playing them. You keep playing them. You keep playing them. Yeah, because at some point they'll start to progress. You'll start to see tiny green shoots of progress. At Liverpool Football Club, as you said, Ross, it's the pinnacle. It's the highest of the highest. And if you ain't cutting it, you don't get very long. You get found out very, very quickly. And I think that's what obviously has happened with him, and also at Sunderland and at Milan.
Are we going in the bin then, chaps? Or Steve, you got anything to add to that, buddy?
No, you do what you need to do with him, mate.
Bin for me. Bin for me.
Bin for me. Fair play. Right. Are we back to you, Ross? Are we back all the way back around again?
Who have we got?
So we got Aldridge. Is that Stewart, Pongo, and Ungog?
Oh Christ! Let's go for Pongal. Why
Hey,
not?
I like him. I like him.
Closer of Pongal. All the potential. He had cool dreadlocks. Thought he was going to be the dog's bollocks. Him and Anthony Latalik. We're up there with Bruno Shearer, who's going to be the next Zinedine Zidane. We're all these young French players that were going to be the business. I think my only memory of him, did he get a goal against Olympiacos?
It's the only one I have as well.
Yeah.
Is that maybe his only goal as well? Is my only memory of him? I mean, my only memory of him is getting him on Champman and playing him and keeping him thinking, yeah, he's gonna be a little star, and we'll loan him out. He'll come back and it'll be the business, and he just wasn't. But I don't think, similar to, I mentioned Latalik then, and probably Bruno Shearer, of coming over here and not having either the mindset or the build to play in Premier League football.
Yeah.
Like I know they were relatively young. I think it was 17, 18 when they came over, but they just never developed. And I didn't have it in my mind's eye. But we're talking about players that we mentioned before. Of the Premier League's not a training ground. It's not a learning curve for people. It might be for some people nowadays for 10, 15 minutes because there's so much football going on. But back then, it wasn't. And I think we're all sold on potential players sometimes, and we get excited about transfers and forget that they can go wrong. And you don't know when to cut your losses. I think he was within a big batch of many others around that period. I mentioned Salif Jar before. I think he's in there as well, of just plays that you think might have potential and just never cut it for me. And his career speaks volumes as well. Never did anything afterwards. Neither did the other lads.
No, I agree. Ste, anything to add on him at all, mate?
No, it's summed up really well. There's this breed of young French players. I mean, Shearer was labelled the new Zidane, wasn't he? And there was that Jermaine Aladier who went to Arsenal, and they all just amounted to absolutely nothing, mate. So it's kind of World Cup fever, wasn't it? The French team were flying, and all these young players playing really well in League One, and all the scouts went to see them and brought all these players back to this country, but they never really materialised too much. So I'll go with it's almost in the bin, isn't it? Because it was really poor.
Sure. I mean, Statman, I'll come to you, mate. Without that Olympiacos goal, Istanbul doesn't happen. So surely that's had his moments, isn't it? Big moment.
It was a big moment, but I think he scored 4 goals in 38 appearances. So the Olympiacos goal was one of them. But for me, it would be between dodgy and in the bin for me. I wouldn't go as far as had his moments with 4 goals. So
I'm going to put him in one above that because of that Olympiacos goal.
I think maybe dodgy because he was so young as well.
In the bin is harsh.
Dodgy.
I think Foreign should be in the bin, to be honest.
Ooh, we can always move him down if everybody agrees.
Okay, so
we'll see. So right, who's up next? Are we back to you, Ste? Are we?
It is, yeah.
So we got Stuart. Aldridge as well.
Aldridge is before you. Was in Liverpool. If that 89 is reference to sort of date of birth, what have you? Aldridge was playing for Liverpool.
We might need you to take him.
Yeah. And with pleasure, mate, because this guy was a number of things. Do you know he offered me out in Walton Village when I was 15, mate? He could probably fight with me, mate. Yeah, just for shouting good goal, mate. Out and had to sort of restrain him and stop him coming over by the elephant and filling me in, mate. So I'm not bothered. I forgive him for that, for all the goals he scored. So obviously, we sold Ian Rush to Juventus, and John Aldridge was his replacement. And there was a big storyline that we should dress John Aldridge in Ian Rush's clothes and send him over there. Maybe they wouldn't know the difference because they looked alike. But to be fair, the guy came in with some massive shoes to fill. We'll talk about Ian Rush at one of the forthcoming shows.
Yeah,
and that could be a show in itself about Ian Rush. But imagine being tasked with filling Ian Rush's boots, and he was ably assisted by Barnes and Beardsley, obviously. And a striker's often only as good as the service they get. And in terms of Liverpool Football Club, Barnes and Beardsley provided him with the very best service. But he was a brilliant goal scorer on the end of everything. The 5-0 game against Forest that Tom Finney says is the best game of football he ever saw. We absolutely dismantled a really good Forest side 5-0. Aldridge's movement was brilliant. He wasn't quick. Rush was quick. Aldridge wasn't quick. But he always knew where to be, when to time his runs. He just had the knack of scoring goals. bit harsh on him really when after a year it didn't work out for Ian Rush for various reasons, and he came back, and Aldridge would have gone from being sort of heralded as the new goal scoring king of the cop to sort of playing Rush has come back, mate, and this isn't going to work out for you. So I do have some sympathy with him, with regards to that. And who can forget him kicking off on the touchline for Ireland in the World Cup when he went ballistic at the linesman? So he was a little bit of a volatile character and remains that, because I hear lots of stories around the city that he's still out having beers and shouting at people, and that's cool, that's fine, that's what they do, mate, and it's cool. But he was a great goal scorer, and he could score with either foot, and he was particularly good in the air. He wasn't massive, but he was really, really good in the air. Great leap, and I'll come to Statman in a minute for some stats on him. But I think his return was really, really good in terms of goals per game ratio. But as I said before, he played in arguably one of the best league campaigns we've ever had when we won the league. A brilliant finisher, and a great foil, great replacement for Ian Rush for 12 months. And even when Ian Rush came back, he had a job to take his shares off him. And I remember the game before he left for Sociedad. It was a big win against Palace, wasn't it? Where he walked down to the fans at the end, and I think we all knew in the ground at the time. We all knew that was going to be that, because we didn't have Twitter, and you used to get your transfer news off CFAX. And I think we all knew that his time was numbers, mate. But he was a great servant for the club in the time that he was there, and unfortunately be remembered for being the first player to miss a penalty in the FA Cup final when Dave Besson saved it.
Lost 1-0, didn't we?
We did. Yeah. We had a perfectly good goal ruled out by the referee, and I don't know. Still to this day, don't know why. But he scored that banger of a goal early doors in the '89 Cup final when Steve McMahon played him through, and he killed it round Southall from distance, and it went in the top right-hand corner. So, great player. Cost us £800,000, I think it was, from Oxford. Who could have known he'd be as effective as he was in replacing Ian Rush? And you could barely notice that Rush had gone for a year.
Just quickly, guys, breaking news. A little bit un-Liverpool related. Yves Bissouma has been arrested on potential sexual assault charges.
Oh gosh.
Does that potentially scarper a Liverpool move?
Take potentially out of that sentence, mate, and you've crawled it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say there's no potentially about it, is there? If that's
no sex pests at Anfield, mate, anytime soon. Is there?
Innocent until proven guilty, as we all know. But that is some news that is emerging as we speak.
Yeah,
we will be all over our Twitter timeline on that very, very shortly. So we'll take it back to you, Statman.
Yeah.
So John Aldridge, as you said, 83 appearances, 50 goals, so a great return before he moved to Sociedad in 1989 for £1 million. So for that, I presume for that time of the year and stuff like that, I mean, that's probably world record fee, maybe from 1989, possibly.
89. Well, we paid 800,000 for him when we signed him, I think, if I'm correct. We'd signed Beardsley for 1.9. So, but he was probably about 29, 30 when he left. So for his age and his return, and Sociedad were no big deal in Spain at the time, by the way. So it was good money for him. We made a profit off him, and he brought us a league title, mate, and he played in FA Cup finals. So good business all round for the club, really, on and off the pitch.
No, agreed. So, I mean, in terms of where we put him then, I mean, Ross, I don't know if you've got anything to add to him before we kind of
not so much for a playing thing, but I think obviously from being a bit older, a bit younger, and he was before my time. But I think that the respect that he gets from obviously local legends, he still does bits for the club now. Obviously, does commentary with Steve Hunter and that. I love his character. I love the fact that he's just one of us. He's a Liverpool fan, isn't he? You know, a lot of famous commentary from the Barcelona game, and you see other ones and stuff like that. Like he's just pure passion. I really rate that about him as well. You know, we were talking about the characteristics of people and people's attitude. You know, having to deal with trying to fill in for Ian Rush, as Steve says, and then come back and fucking hell, the lad that everyone idolises is back again. To kind of face up to that and still perform and still kind of, you know, back yourself to what you're doing. I think he deserves real credit for that as well. I think it's. I don't know whether he gets legend status because of the amount of games that he played and whether Cult Hero is better, but I mean, Steve would probably be a better judge than me for that one.
Yeah, come on, Steve. Last say. Where does he go? No pressure.
We're obviously not in a position to win a European title when he was at the club, but
True.
I don't think you can hold that against him. his impact was huge. You know, you lose arguably the greatest number 9 Liverpool have ever had at that time, and you come in and seamlessly replace him, and you go on and win trophies. It's really difficult because I think there's quite a big gap between cult hero and legend. And my worry would be he probably warrants a bit more than cult hero, and it's questionable whether you could call him a legend. But if I had to make a decision based on, and Ross makes some really good points about he's been around the club ever since, and yeah, he's a bit of a nutter, and we love that about him. And the celebration for the Barcelona, the 4th goal in the little room upstairs, is absolutely beautiful watch, isn't it? I think as a player he would be leaning towards legend. I think the fact that he stayed around the club and done what he's done, strange that we should include that, but I'd be leaning on the side of legend purely because of the impact he made, and it could have gone so badly for us when Ian Rush left, but it really didn't.
No, I would agree. I'm happy to leave him there. He's pretty good on the commentary, isn't he? On the Anfield, on the Liverpool channels as well. Some good moments there. But we're down to 2. Statman, you've got a choice of Ungog or I think it's Stuart, isn't it? The other one.
I'll go with Ungog then because that's the only one in my time. Sorry, Thiago's father, but yeah.
Get your Google up.
I'm going to have to.
So Ungog, 2008 to 2011, 63 appearances, 9 goals. Obviously, most famous one was the one against Man United at Anfield, 2-0 when Reina came running from obviously his goal to the opposite end into the Kop. So that's what stands out for me. But he then obviously joined Bolton for 4 million that we got for him. So, but yeah, all right player. But just for the Man United goal alone, I mean, that's worth its weight in gold, really, isn't it?
I just think I think David Ngog is like our generation's Divock Origi. That's how
I think that's kind.
That's how I've always kind of referred to him as like we've always kind of had that kind of player at the club, and now it's Divock Origi, and before it was David Ngog. But for a big man, he was very good with his feet. He's very decent with the ball at his feet, and had a very decent strike of the ball as well. He was always being talked up as having so much potential, but we never really saw it. I don't think anybody ever really saw it, to be fair, because he didn't set the world alight at Bolton, did he? So, yeah.
I just think he was just default in the team because we just had no other strikers at the time. You know, we had Fernando Torres, who was just into the point where he played great for 3 months and then was injured for a month. So, you know, we were going into these great big fixtures, and the only fit striker we had at the club was David Ngog, and like you say, he never really did anything, did he? Apart from that United goal. So for me, it's definitely between the bottom 2.
My memory of that United goal was Pepe Reina getting there first to celebrate with him, which I think I find more impressive than the goal itself. To be honest,
the Alisson Salah one, yeah.
I think going back to the comment before, Divock Origi is quite a bit better than David Ngog if you're going to compare the two of them together.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, mate, it was Gerrard and Torres, wasn't it, ripping it up? So Ngog just sat and watched those games, and anybody in world football would sit and watch those two. To be fair, so he didn't have a Liverpool career really, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
I think in the bin is pretty fair. So we're going to round it off with Stuart. So I don't know if anyone other than Steve has got anything to say.
Steve, this one's made for you, mate. Because I don't have a.
This one's quite quick. This one will go and had his moments because he scored some reasonably important goals. But Paul Stewart's career would be remembered for his impact at Spurs, not at Liverpool. He was another Graham Souness signing that on the face of it looked like it might work. He was more of a midfielder who was turned into sort of a late arriving in the box midfielder at Liverpool, almost a forward, if you look at it that way. We now know he was carrying a lot of baggage around with him because of what happened to him as a youth. So, you know, you have to bear that in mind as well, that psychologically he might have not been where he needed to be in terms of taking his career forward. And similarly to Stan Collymore, he's obviously dealing with some demons. Technically quite a good footballer, to be fair to him. Not quick, strong, able to hold people off. He was a good guy to play the ball into and then get runners going off him, sort of third man running. He would be the guy who'd play the ball into, he'd set it back, and then Barnes would set off one of the more pacey players. I don't think Paul Stewart's career at Liverpool ever got going. I don't think he was the right signing for the club at the right time. There'll be other forwards we'll talk about in part 2 and part 3 when they come. He's another one that came to the club and we thought, yeah, we've got a player here because he was a player at Spurs. But certain clubs and certain systems don't work for you. And what Liverpool were trying to do at the time really, really didn't suit Paul Stewart at all. So unfortunately, we paid £2.3 million for him as well, which is quite a lot of money from Spurs. He's dodgy for me, mate, because it just didn't work for him at the football club. It really didn't work.
Moving him down. You started with had his moments. You've took yourself down to dodgy now, Steve.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here while I'm doing that, and one part of me saying talk him up a little bit because it wasn't fair. Another part of me saying, actually, mate, what are you talking about? What did he do? I can't give you a career highlight at Liverpool for Paul Stewart. I can't give you a game or a goal that says, this was what he did. He was just disappointing. So I think he's got to go in dodgy, mate.
Fair play. So that's our finalised tier list, guys. Not too bad on the time. We have gone way past an hour, but I think some of the previous ones have almost touched 2. But Ross, are you happy with that, mate? Is there anything in there that is really annoying you that you want to move?
It's not annoying me, but I don't know what Voronin's done more than the lads that are in the bin. And why
I'm with you, Rossi. I'm with you, mate. I'm with you.
You're with him, yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right, he's going down. He's going down in the same kit as England. What an era. Anybody else got anything else that's really annoying them or on their mind they want to move?
I'm struggling with Milan Barros, to be fair.
I was going to say,
I don't know what if being a contortionist and bending your body in such a way that makes his goal going, mate.
I'm not moving him down. If anything, I'm moving him up.
No. We need to talk about this, guys, because I'm looking at that thinking, no, because I just no, it's not doing it for me there.
I'm not moving him down. I refuse. It's not happening.
If we have a vote, we have to do a democratic vote, Adam, won't we, and see where we get to.
Yeah, we're going to take it to a vote. So guys in the comments, just quickly, does Milan Barros belong in had his moments, or does he belong in dodgy? So just hit that comments box for us now, real quick, just so we know where to put him.
One more. And it's only a question, and it's Bobby, of what do you have to do to get an icon? If you've won the Champions League, Premier League, Club World Cup, been as influential as he's been, and produced the way he's done. I know he's still at the club, but what do you have to do to get an icon?
If he wins another Premier League title, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think icon is reserved for
I think you've got to be Ian Rush, haven't you, basically?
Ian Rush.
Kenny Dalglish, players like that.
Like top of the top of the top.
The
creme de la creme.
Yes.
So
there's these votes from the comments, guys. Otherwise,
tumbleweed flying around.
He's not moving at the moment. I've not been outvoted yet.
We're going to have to put it to a vote for us, guys. So I'm saying he goes down.
Down.
Oh, no way. Come on, Statman.
I would agree with you, Adam. I would say.
It's good.
Again.
I've got the controls. He's not going down. I've got the controls. He's going nowhere. I'm putting my foot down. I've not said too much tonight, and I'm doing it now.
No,
he's not going down.
Again with your stupid telepathy. Move him.
It's not happening. He's had his moments.
Oh, come on. Go 3-2, Adam. You've got to do it. You've got to do it.
The comments
he wasn't dodgy.
The comments. He's pretty good season.
Had his moments. So that's 4-3 to me now. So I win.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's only because at his moments he's moving out the way of a shot from Sweeter.
He's not going down. He's absolutely. He's one of the legends of my Liverpool fandom. He's not going down anymore. I'm already disappointed of where he is now, and I've been backed in the comments. So thank you to those guys. But that's brought us to the end of tier list number 1. Big thank you to our panel, Ross. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate you giving us your time. That was our second part of Redmen Week. We've got Paul Machin coming on tomorrow to round it off. Steve, thank you as always, mate, for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you on, and obviously James and Statman, as always, guys. Absolute pleasure to have you guys as well. But if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this during the day tomorrow, don't forget to check out Strikers Part 2. As I said, with Paul Machin tomorrow. You've got Origi, Benteke, Balotelli, Torres, Crouch, Cisse, Owen, Rush, Dalglish, Toshak, and Hunt tomorrow. So it's a big one tomorrow. There's lots and lots of names in there. So. Can't wait to get into that. But yeah, that's been it from us, guys, and we will see you tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.